In a world where Microsoft virtualization is still considered to be the underdog by some, the Hyper-V Amigos enlighten the IT crowds on how they could very well be mistaken.
Yeah, welcome back, Didier, my friend, to another Hyper-V Amigos showcast. It's a long time no see, right?
Yes, of course.
It was only yesterday when we both did a podcast about...
Yeah, but that wasn't the showcast.
It wasn't a showcast, right? So, Didier, we announced already this showcast. We wanted to talk about the great new stuff in graphics and Hyper-V, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes, and there are... Yeah, go on, please.
For that, we have this nice little demo machine here.
Yes, you have this nice little demo machine, and we will demonstrate. Let's talk a little bit about what's new. We have improvements in a technology that is there for, I think, quite a long time. It's RemoteFX. It was first introduced, I think, with 2008. With 2008 R2 SP1, right?
Yes, it's been quite a while since we've had it, and it's pretty nifty technology, which I consider today almost a need to have when you do VDI.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how much visualization is going on, even in web browsers nowadays, you want to have your end users be happy with their solution and not be left behind. And I know at first sight, if you don't use it, it looks like everything is going to be okay. But as people start using it for their day-to-day work and they use it just like they would do a hardware device, they start to notice certain things. And you want to avoid that. You want people to be very happy, have enough memory, have enough GPU, have enough CPU, have enough IOPS, and just say, hey, this is a step forward. I'm happy I can remote to this thing all of the time from anywhere, and I have a good experience, and that's what you want.
I did a podcast with Benny Treach. You know him, of course. It's a fellow MVP from the RDS area, so remote desktop services, and he said that that Windows 10 assumes that you have a GPU, and if you don't have a GPU, it emulates one. So it's very important to have GPU support in the operating systems, and RemoteFX is for that. It's like so. Let's explain what RemoteFX is. It's like if you have virtualization and you have a CPU, you share your CPU, your cores, with a lot of virtual machines. The virtual machines they calculate everything on the CPUs of the system, and they get a share of the CPU, so a time slice. And the same you can do with a GPU, so the graphical processor that you have in your machine. And for that is RemoteFX. So in essence, like CPU sharing, it's not the right word, but let it put it that way. You have the same with RemoteFX with GPUs. Yeah. And it was quite limited in earlier versions of the operating systems. For example, we had only RemoteFX support in 2012 R2 for generation 1 virtual machines, because they choose to implement the RemoteFX graphical adapter as a PCI device, and a generation 2 virtual machine in 2012 R2 doesn't have a PCI bus, right? So we could only leverage RemoteFX in generation 1 virtual machines. And another thing, it was really only supported for clients. So in a server, we didn't have really RemoteFX support.
Yeah. True.
And this is changing in 2016. So we now have RemoteFX in generation 2 VMs, the modern ones, I would say.
Yes.
And you get also RemoteFX support in server if you do server VDI. Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
this is
to prove that point, actually, you can see that the node we're going to be playing with today is actually a 2016 server with the desktop experience installed.
Okay, cool.
So it is a server. And secondly, notice it's generation 2. Okay.
Yeah, cool. So this opens. Let's first go a little bit about the theory. This opens a scenario. If you uses GPUs in 2012 R2 for VDI, you have to have client operating systems,
Yes.
and client operating systems are not licensed with the normal Windows Server licensing, like data center and so on. So you had to have another license type. It's called VDA. Yeah, and this is a bit problematic if you want to have a lot of clients on your servers. So now with 2016, we have this server VDI scenario, and all your virtual Windows servers are maybe licensed with a data center license, like your other virtual machines. So this is a nice scenario. But there are other things that Microsoft improved in RemoteFX. Do you remember them, or should I talk about them?
There's a support for OpenGL, for example.
Yeah.
So it's not just DirectX anymore, which is for me very important because the moment you start serving customers that have, let's say, higher end graphical needs because they're using AutoCAD or other applications that need a lot of graphical work to be done, you run into the fact that not all of them will support DirectX. You know, it's a big world out there with lots of solutions. So OpenGL, OpenCL, that support being now available is, I would say, finally, because it's been a while that we've been waiting for that one.
Yeah, and
it's a showstopper in a lot of scenarios not having it.
Yeah, they support quite newer standards, right? The last thing I heard about was OpenGL 4.4.
Yeah, it's on my blog somewhere.
Yeah, it's quite new. So you have also very new applications that use this newer version of OpenGL, and even OpenCL. It's another graphical standard.
Yeah.
It's also supported with 1.1 or so. Yeah?
Well, they had to do that. I mean, it's no use supporting a 10-year-old implementation of a technology, right? I mean, this is not going to fly. This is nice if you want to do retro for the museum, but if you want to have a real solution in real life, you'll need to man up and support the new stuff. Yeah. Or at least what's current at the moment. Otherwise, it will not fly. Yeah. And there's some other improvements in drawing the fonts and the codecs used, so the quality overall is a lot better. And if you combine that,
I learned. Sorry, Didier. Go on.
No, and if you combine that with one of the changes they made in 2012, the UDP support for remote desktop protocol, that makes for a very, very nice experience for your remote workers. We use that a lot to have our developers, geographical information systems engineers connect to their desktop systems, and it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and another thing to mention, before 2016, the graphical cards that were supported were quite limited. There were only these big GPU monsters, I would say. But now you even get the RemoteFX support for, let's say, the Intel adapter that is in your processor. You can use this GPU also to enhance the graphical output in your virtual machines a bit, at least. Yeah,
which is all good news.
Yeah. So this is the first thing we want to talk about, but the most important thing we will show afterwards is the new thing that it's like your name, right? It's DDA.
Oh yeah, this is very funny. So my name is Didier. So when an American tries to pronounce this, sometimes they will go for Dieter, sometimes they will go for DJ, but they'll try to pronounce it, so they'll make a DDA, and DDA sounds a bit like DDA. So that provided for some very fun moments at the MVP summit, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to do a webcast where DDA would talk about DDA.
Exactly. So and DDA stands for
Discrete Device Assignment.
So let's talk a little bit about that. It's of course has to do something with graphic, but it's not the only scenario, right?
Yeah. So no, it's not the only scenario. But basically, with discrete device assignment, you can really map a piece of hardware directly one-on-one to a virtual machine. So it is absolutely dedicated to that virtual machine. So at that moment, you lose the sharing. That's important to realize.
Yeah.
So that means that in scalability, it's more limited than RemoteFX, for example, or a GPU sharing as you might find it with Citrix or other solutions. But it is, of course, a highly performant one, because imagine you can actually give an NVIDIA grid card or a Tesla card to a virtual machine. And that's the GPU example. But as you can see, we have the NVIDIA Grid ones in this test system.
Yeah.
But we also have something else. Look at this one.
Something you love.
It's an NVMe disk. And that is also a device you can map through to a virtual machine. And it doesn't really end there. You can map to other hardware. And Microsoft actually provides a script that lets you scan your system.
Okay.
And will report any device that might work. It will say this won't work, this won't work, this won't work, but this might work, this might work. That doesn't mean it's supported by the vendor of the hardware and that, etc., etc. But at least those are the ones that are not blocked in some way technically from being used for discrete device assignment. Examples of that are wireless network cards, for example.
Okay.
Or even a storage controller, a RAID controller from your Dell. You might map it through to your virtual machine. You can do really funky stuff that way. Okay, but that doesn't really mean it is supported by Microsoft. Is it unsupported? Well, it's a bit of a ambiguous situation. I know the statement was at one time, look, GPUs and NVMe disks are the two biggest use cases, and we'll support those. But have a ball with other scenarios. But I'm not really sure that they will support you.
Okay, so for any chance, have you this script at hand, and can we use it on your system and show what it says?
It takes a while to run. So
okay.
what I'll do is I'll point you to the blog.
Yeah.
I have this blog series on the discrete device assignment, and there's a series of blogs on this from Microsoft as well.
Yeah.
And they do have this link to the script.
It's from Ben Arm. From Ben Armstrong. Yeah.
And if you run it, you will see that it lists all kinds of devices in red, but also the ones you can map through. That it can work, right? It can work, it says.
Okay, cool.
So look at this one, which could work. A Malnox card. An RDMA capable NIC. Potentially, you could map it through to your VM and have RDMA in that NIC.
Did you try that?
I did not try it yet.
I'm surprised because you try everything with RDMA, right? That would be RDMA performance in a VM.
Yeah, but yeah, I know. But there's other ways of achieving that, and this is not the way they're gonna go, because in this scenario you lose the live migration part. Right?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
So anyway, this is one to try. But NVIDIA Grid, of course, the GPU. Look at this. A fiber channel HBA is also listed as possible.
Yeah, but you will also lose the live migration, and for that we have the virtual fiber channel stuff, right?
This is not a preferred way of giving fiber channel to VM, but of course, it is possible if you want to try it. And oh, look, your RAID controller in your Dell server, hey, it shows up as well. So think about it. If you have an extra RAID controller in your Dell server and you attach a bunch of SSD, you could actually mount them to your VM. Now, is this a good idea? I'm not saying, because I've been testing some of the performance you can get with a VHDX on a bunch of SSDs in storage spaces, versus an NVMe mapped through with DDA to a VM. Well, of course, the NVMe will beat even a single NVMe will beat a couple of SSDs, but still the amount of throughput you get on a VHDX running on highly performant storage is already quite impressive. So if you don't need the NVMe performance, if you're not a video engineer producing some nice cartoon for a well-known, movie maker, studio, and you're just editing PowerPoint, you might not want to go to the expense. But hey, if you're an AutoCAD engineer designing new ships or engines, or you create videos, perhaps even of your engineering work, and you want to edit them fastly, well, perhaps that's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Because for us, that's the scenario. Basically, we're not aiming to give all users a GPU and an NVMe through DDA. We're just looking at, we will provide SSDs for the storage. We will provide 10 gigabit networking. We will provide really good graphical cards with RemoteFX. And that will be for the bulk of our users. But the users that really do need the last inch of performance, we'll give them the option. Look, we can also virtualize you. We can also put you on a VDI solution. We can give you an NVMe disk on your VM and a real GPU on your VM. The trade-off is that you lose the high availability and the virtual, not the high availability of you. That's not really true. It will fail over. But let's say the mobility of the virtual machine.
Yeah.
You lose that. Now, the question is, how bad is it? Not that bad if you work on a standalone workstation on your desk and that disk says, I'm dead. Well, you're also out of work for a couple of hours until it's fixed, so you get a new workstation. So the trade-off there isn't that important. It's checks and balances.
Yeah.
But the good news is, and this might be interesting, as you can see, this NVIDIA grid here has 4 GPUs in there actually.
That's nice.
I can assign 1 via DDA to a VM or 2, and still leverage the other ones for RemoteFX.
That's a good segue. So let's do that, right?
Let's do that. Okay.
So that's important what you said. DDA is for you assign a piece of hardware dedicated to one VM. In this with this graphic processors, GPUs, you assign maybe 2 of them to one VM. But we can still use, if we want to share graphic performance, and even to have a bit graphic performance in a VM is better than nothing. We can share with RemoteFX, we can share the other 2 GPUs because they have a lot of GPU cores, right? I was talking to Benny and he said this Tesla M60 also has 1,000 of cores.
Yeah,
not like
Tesla
a CPU that has some 10 cores, it has 1,000 of cores.
Teslas are game changers as well, I think. They're taking this virtualization of GPUs. They're taking it to the next level, especially in scalability. That's what it looks like to me. Yeah.
So let's play with this stuff. This is a showcast, another talkcast, right?
Okay. So we have this virtual machine here.
DDA Win 2K16. Okay. Let's show the settings.
And we have our virtual machine, our Hyper-V settings here. And if we look at the physical GPUs, you will see my 4 GPUs for my card, right? Mm-hmm. And I can say I will enable this to use it with a RemoteFX or not. Now, it's important to know that if you plan to use one of these with DDA, you do not want to enable it for RemoteFX, and you do not want to have it assigned to VMs via RemoteFX.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll enable number 4 for RemoteFX. Mm-hmm. We will enable number 3 for RemoteFX, and for now we'll just leave these 2 disabled for RemoteFX. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. So then we go to our virtual machine and we say, look, we'll give you some hardware. And what will we give you? We'll give you RemoteFX adapter. Okay?
Yes, of course. Go on.
Then it asks, what do you want? Do you want my native? Let's not go completely overboard. What do you want to do?
It's another new thing. It supports 4K displays. It's new with 2016 in RemoteFX.
Yes. And you have more options for the memory you can assign, so you can
up to 1 gigabyte of dedicated RAM.
I know you want it. You have it now.
Okay. Please don't use this resolution. Go a little bit lower because
maybe this one?
What can we show? Yeah, maybe the 1280 by
something. This is what I have.
Yeah, because we have to show the machine.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go.
Yeah.
So you want some more memory in there? I know you want
to. Give it a gigabyte.
You can have it. You can have it. So there we go. We assigned it.
You have already 14 virtual processors. So
let's start this one up. That should be this one.
Yeah. Please move it a little bit more into the view. Or do you want to go full screen?
No, I'm trying to move it, but it's not really cooperating. I should move this one. What do you want to do?
Go maybe full screen, huh?
Full screen?
Yeah, but we didn't. Okay. No, because we didn't optimize it for all, huh? That would be the question. Does it matter now? Because we did in RemoteFX, it has only 1280 by 1024, and now we have a larger screen.
It matters mostly because now we're connecting to the Hyper-V connection connector. Yeah. If you RDP to it, you want to use your full screen and maximize your resolution. It's not limiting you, right? It's just saying what's the maximum resolution is you will support. It's not really forcing you to a certain resolution.
Then go maybe back, shut it down, and let's do the bigger resolution, huh? Before we have some problems with the performance.
You will not have performance problems.
Not on your machine.
It can always be better.
Yeah, of course.
It can always be better. Now, let's go here. See, the problem is, of course, I need to shut it down.
You can't change it when it's running, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to show you. We need to shut it down. You want to change it?
Yeah, please.
Shut down. There we go. Now we have to close this again and open it again. This does not refresh dynamically.
Yeah.
So
something to wish for, right?
Yeah. I'll leave it at one monitor because that's what we have. Okay. This one?
Yes, of course. This is your original resolution. Let's take that. And the memory?
The memory, we can go to 1 gigabit. Okay.
Yeah.
Happy?
Yes.
Do you have enough memory and processors? Are you?
Yes, we have enough.
Good? Are you good? Okay. Just checking. So if you want to have a nice virtual machine experience with your employer, then you have to come where I work.
Yeah, because we want to compare it to DDA, and so we should get the most of the virtual machine.
So let's log in. So as you can see, I have Google here. This is just to protest the fact that Edge is not in the Windows server.
Okay. Yes, we have the good old Internet Explorer, right?
So let's take some easy tool to begin with, right? So we have Fishbowl. There's a couple of other tools where you can see the frames per second, and I'm having some fish swimming around in HTML5. So let's go to 100 fish. No problem. Seems fine, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Let's go to 1,000 fish. Now it has to work a bit harder, drops a bit. So basically we have 1,000 fish swimming around here at about approximately 30, 32 frames per second.
That's not bad. Let's remember that number, 1,000 fish over 30 frames per second. I will note it down. Not bad. Okay.
You want to see more, or
can you do more?
2,000 fish. There's 2,000 fish here. That's not bad. if this is just a computer simulation for any people who are concerned about the fish, I did not put 2,000 fish in one bowl.
But now it's 9 frames, right?
It's struggling a bit. Okay, so that was the RemoteFX thingy. Oh yeah, to make sure that you know that we have RemoteFX, of course, we can always take a peek here and show you device manager.
Graphic card.
What we see here is that we have a RemoteFX graphical device.
Yes.
Right? So, and this is happy. And this is also very easy. As you saw, we just present it in the GUI or via PowerShell. It shows up in your virtual machine. You can use it.
Yeah. Can you show some of these great graphical demonstrations that use OpenGL? I know you have it, Heaven or so.
Yes, it's installed, so we can use it. So
yeah. Because if you start Heaven on a system that has no OpenGL support, it will not work.
It will not.
Or no DirectX 11 support.
So let's not exaggerate, and let's see if it works.
It will. I tried it on my small computer. It's now loading the frames.
Yeah. This is quite a resource-intensive demo, by the way.
It is.
But there we go. And as you can see, all what you are seeing now is me remote desktoping to a server and there connecting via Hyper-V Manager to VM.
Yeah.
And this is the graphical experience you get. So it's not bad, is it?
No, it's quite good.
It's not bad at all. I'm modest. I'm European, as I always say to my American friends. But it's nice. This is nice.
Yes, it's very nice. And this is the enhanced desktop mode, right?
Yeah. So and it's not me here. If you do this on a gaming card with RemoteFX, the results are even better.
Yeah.
Right?
How much frames do you have?
I see 19 to 20
frames. Yeah.
Okay,
I write that down. That's Heaven.
We even have it on camera, so that's good.
Yeah. Heaven is 19 to 20 frames per second. Okay, great.
So that's great. Well, okay, the frames do change a bit depending on what they're showing you at that moment. But anyway, you got the idea, right?
Yeah. But the important part is we can use graphic card hardware. It's shared, of course, but we can use it in many VMs. So you can install a RemoteFX adapter in more than one VM and sharing the same GPU. And if the GPU has 200 cores, we get better performance than without a graphics adapter.
Yeah, the exact amount you can share on 1 or 2 grid cards or Tesla cards. It will depend on how much resources you assign to each VM, how resource intensive those VMs are in their workloads. Yeah. So that's a bit of a experimental way of determining, but at least 8 to 10 per GPU should be possible. So normally with 1 or 2 NVIDIA cards, you should be able to hand out RemoteFX GPUs to all the VMs running on a host.
Yeah, and you have the possibility to use protocols that are not available without RemoteFX. So OpenGL, for example, or DirectX 11 or something is not available without RemoteFX, right? So you can use other applications in VMs that you can use without RemoteFX support.
Okay. So do you want to leave it in there, and then we'll just shut this one down?
What do I want to leave in there?
The RemoteFX card, because of course you can be ridiculous. You can assign a RemoteFX card to a virtual machine and assign a GPU via DDA.
And then, do you know which one the software will take?
You will see it in the performance monitor if which one it's using, and you can say in your group policy that it has to use the hardware one, and you can also just disable the RemoteFX cards. But I can leave it in or I can remove it
how you like it. You are the specialist on this.
I'm not really, but you know what we'll do? We'll remove it because actually it's ridiculous to do this.
Okay.
Let's not give people bad ideas.
Okay.
Let's just say. On the other hand, shall we? I'll remove it.
Maybe later we can edit and you show us the counters.
Anyway, I've given you some ideas for some experimentation of yourself.
Yeah, I have no Tesla card. Oh.
The good thing is, also, we didn't mention this while we were doing the demo. This was a server VM with RemoteFX, and it's a Generation 2 VM, okay? So that's really good news, because I was really missing that.
You see that's a Generation 2 VM because we have a firmware there. Firmware. Yeah.
And it also says Generation 2 here, which is great. Kind of interesting. Okay, so now let's go to assign a GPU to a VM. It has to be shut down. That is not that strange. To remove it, it doesn't really have to. It's kind of funky. The effect is the same as yanking your graphical card out of your running physical workstation.
Yeah, it's not. You do that all the time, right?
It's not good.
So you mean there's something blue involved?
Eventually, yes. So what are we going to do? Let's walk through this script. Let's run this on the host. So on the VM host, we're going to look, do we have some VM host assignable devices? So normally this should say nothing, because we haven't done anything yet, right?
It says nothing, right?
Yeah. So there is no GPU ready to be assigned to a virtual machine.
Okay.
That's basically what this says. So now I want to get, we're going to list some plug and play devices of the class display and just list them to see what I have.
Okay.
And as you can see, it gives me my basic Microsoft display adapter and my 4 NVIDIA GPUs. Right?
GPUs there,
now,
K1, yeah.
I know that I have assigned GPU 3 and 4 for RemoteFX use. So I know I should not use these for discrete device assignment.
Yeah, but you don't know which they are, right? You assume it's the third and the fourth.
Well, actually, they enumerate quite well in numbers and serial numbers. Okay. So if you list them properly, that will work. But there is no correlation other than that, other than the listing. So let me show you how we do this. You could enhance the query of your PMP devices a bit. So now I'm saying I only want to see the NVIDIA cards.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but that would show me all NVIDIA cards. What if I have 2 different types? Well, I could say, look, my friendly name has too much NVIDIA Grid K1, and basically what it does then is, you get the same thing here because I only have 1 type, but you get the idea.
Yeah, of course.
So what we now do is let's look at our VM. Our VM here, if we list it, we have some properties here that are related to the memory used by a graphical card. And as you can see, this one, the low memory mapped I/O space and the high memory mapped I/O space.
Mm-hmm.
I've already played with this, but as you can see, they have been set, right? So if you look at this, this is indeed 1 gigabyte and 2 gigabyte high. You can go as high as 4.
So what was it normally if you don't had modified this VM already?
128 and 512.
Okay.
The only way I found out was because I queried a system that was newly deployed and I looked at the values.
Okay.
So that's what it is. And I was playing with this before, this is the default. This is 128 and this is 512. Okay. But it's in bytes. It's in bytes, so. Yeah, but as you know, PowerShell is a calculator. So if you calculate this, right, it works out 128 megabytes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're missing your calculator because you're not running desktop experience, use PowerShell. Right? That will do. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to our script. So what we do actually is by setting the cache types in the memory to true, that it's used, and giving it a certain amount of memory. Now, I have found very little documentation on how to determine what is the best value. So I'm like, look at the capabilities of your graphical card and look at what your users need and start playing with it. That's the only advice I can give you right now.
Okay.
It doesn't.
So you map the 1 gigabyte of I/O space to this virtual machine.
Yeah.
It sounds like that, but as you said, you don't know how really the.
But it is for use with the graphical card. So the question is, what are the capabilities of your graphical cards? It's senseless to say here, have 16 gigabytes of memory if the card can't use that, right? So I think 4 for the cards I have, the grids is 4. So I've taken half of that. I'm just, I have no really very strict or.
I think you actually have taken only 1 gigabyte, so it would be not half; it would be 25%.
Yeah, but it's the low memory and the high memory. How this works out in reality on the real workloads, we still have to gain some experience with that one. But this is a good thing to set because this will truly enhance the performance. So we set that. So we do that. It's actually already set, but we'll do it again. So there we go. And now comes the interesting thing. Now let's.
The low memory I/O space is nothing now. That's weird.
Well, that's probably just.
Okay.
Nothing is perfect in this world.
Okay. You were too fast with the second command, the third command. Okay.
Yeah, but as you know, if we look at, we've listed them here.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got 4 of them, but we'll actually this is a little array we got here. So what we'll do is we'll take the first one and we'll disable this, because that's the first step you need to do to be able to assign a GPU to a VM. So we go to this line and we take the first of our 4 and we disable it. Now, if you go and look now in computer management, you will see that it is disabled. You could have done this to the GUI. This is a part you can do to the GUI if you want. Okay?
Yeah.
So this one is disabled. Now, let's look at that listing again and see what we have. We still see all 4, but one shows status of error because we have disabled it.
Okay.
But that's what we want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the data of that, the data string of that GPU we just disabled, which is the first one. It's a 0-based array.
Yeah.
Right? And we're going to grab it.
The instance ID, okay. You get, okay.
So based on the instance ID of that, that's the identifier we use for that first one, which is 0-based. And then we are looking for this one. Data is a multi-value string.
Okay.
So, and it's the first part we are interested in because that's the path of the device we need. So what we will do now is grab that location path out of this data value. So let's do that. And there it is. This is the path. This is where my physical GPU resides. And then I will say, using that location path, I'm going to dismount this GPU from my host.
Okay.
So remember what we see here. It's disabled. Now I'm going to dismount it. Hoopla. It's gone. Okay?
Nice.
It's gone. Now if we look at, remember this is the very first thing we did. See if there were any GPUs or devices we could assign to a VM. There was nothing. Now there is one. Which one? Well, the one we just dismounted from the host.
Okay, that's so like magic, right?
Yeah, so the moment we make it unavailable to the host, it becomes available to VM, potentially. So what we then do is, okay, look at my VM.
Yeah, add it to the VM. Yeah.
Nothing has been assigned yet. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But
you ask if something is assigned. Okay.
Yeah. So, but we know there is one, and we know we have the location path already stored. So what we'll do is we'll assign it to the VM.
Okay.
That's it. Now let's query it again. Bingo.
Cool.
Yay. We have a GPU.
Cool.
So all
now
we need to do now
has a GPU. Okay.
Is boot this one. And then we'll connect to it again. So what do you know about installing hardware on a VM?
You should install the driver, right?
Well, let's have a look. I have uninstalled it normally, so it shouldn't find it. So we have this Microsoft Basic Display Adapter and the Microsoft Hyper-V video. So something is wrong here, something is missing. And as you said it's the driver. So for some silly reason, I have the driver ready. So let's just...
You know that we need that, right?
Yes,
so
of
this
course.
is the important part. You install the original hardware driver from the card.
Yes,
for the
absolutely.
RemoteFX stuff, we didn't do that because it's not the NVIDIA driver we install. The VM has the RemoteFX driver. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
So, but this is real hardware mapped to your VM. So you need the drivers for the hardware for it to function properly. So NVIDIA is now actually checking, hey, do you even have an NVIDIA card? And if all goes well, it should find an NVIDIA grid card and say, hey, you're good to go. I've got your driver. I'm going to install it for you. Mm-hmm. Which makes perfect sense.
While we're waiting, okay.
I agree and continue. I say Express. I'm not really concerned about any customizations, and I'll just let it run. So while we wait for this, you were saying?
Yeah, because the DDA devices, they show up in Azure, you know? There are VMs now, it's the N series, and they leverage DDA. So they have up to 4 GPUs. And an NVMe disk. That's cool stuff, right?
Now, it might be a cost-effective solution to use if you have, let's say, compute needs for certain moments of the day or the week. Mm-hmm. So the good thing about a VM in Azure is that you can shut it down, and then you stop paying for it.
Yeah.
Whilst if you have an engineering firm that works 24/7 around the clock.
You wouldn't shut it down.
You wouldn't shut it down, and then it would perhaps become very costly in Azure. But if you say, look, only twice a month, I need a couple of days of really heavy CPU-intensive work done by some of my engineers, then it might become a very interesting option. So it really depends on your use case there.
Mm-hmm. I want only to say this is not something we will have been in our systems in 2 or 3 years. It's already in preview in Azure. And
it's product. I think it's GA in Azure.
Yeah,
now.
I think it's.
Hey, that worked.
Yeah, you have some drivers installed, huh?
It shows up here, but of course it wants us to reboot, so let's do that.
Okay.
So, but this is a Generation 2 VM. It installs fast, it boots fast, it's running on nice hardware, so that should be super fast. There we go. That's nice.
An advantage of virtual machines. If you had to reboot the server, we could stop for 15 minutes maybe.
But this was fast. You have to admit, this was really nice and fast.
It's really fast. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to Device Manager. And let's take a look.
Display adapter? No. Yeah.
Hey! That's good.
That's your grid card? Yeah.
That's good. And we still have this Microsoft Hyper-V video card, but let's just make sure that we use the NVIDIA one. There's a couple of things to note. What we can do is we can start I prepared this. This is our performance monitor, which looks at my NVIDIA card stats in my VM. So if I do something, this should go up, right? Something should start happening. Okay? Okay, that makes sense. Also, there is this notion that you have to enable a group policy setting for the card to be used. And I'm a bit confused and conflicted about the necessity, because I have noticed it tends to use the physical card anyway, whether I set it or not. Okay. So that's one of the questions I still have to send back to Edmund and get an answer of. But there is this written and documented blogged, or at least discussed in presentations by Microsoft that you need to set it. So let's have this quick look at that group policy.
Yeah, but I would say if you start something with OpenGL support, your standard video adapter doesn't have OpenGL support. So if your application runs, it's using the but if you would have a RemoteFX card, and then you maybe would use the wrong one, right?
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know exactly the details of that setting. So what we'll do is we'll go to Computer, Administrative Templates. It's called Windows Components. Then there is something about Remote Desktop in here. There we go. Remote hosts, the environment, and there is this use the hardware default graphics adapter for all remote desktop services. And they say you have to enable it, and I enabled it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's running. Just full disclosure. But now let's go to our fish. Let's look at our fish again. So there we go. It starts off with 10 fish. I think we started going to 1,000 fish or something, right?
Yeah, we even did 2,000. 1,000 was 30.
Yeah, but let's stick
30
with
frames
1,000.
per second. What if there's it's 60 frames per second, right?
It's not even missing a heartbeat. But you see the power consumption went up.
Is it 60, what you see?
It's 60, yeah, it's 60. And we're consuming some memory.
Yeah,
this went from
getting
4
a little bit warmer. It's 35 degrees Celsius now.
Nothing it can't handle, right?
Yeah, 36.
Yeah, but okay, let's go to 2,000 fish.
Yeah, of course. Get all the fish.
Oh,
it's going down. It's coming down.
It's going down. It's going down. It's working. It's trying. Oh, what's happening? 26, 20, 31. It's struggling, but it's better than 9. We were at 9 with the other one, I think.
Yes, we were at around 10 frames per second, and now we have 25, I would say, right?
25, 26, yeah.
Yeah. So
for 2,000 fish.
Yeah, it's 2.5 times better, more frames. And with 1,000, we had roughly over 30 frames per second. So we had.
And here 50. We're still at 60.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can see more than 60 frames per second with Fishbowl.
Well, my bowl is full. 2,000. I will not put any more fish in there. But
no,
that was the easy comparison. That was my fish swimming. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you want to see the other thing again, of course.
I want the heaven. I would love the heaven thing.
Did
you open GL? Yes.
So it's building.
Yeah,
There we go. And we're off and running.
It's 15.
Yeah, but it depends. It depends on the scene in the animation. So it will go up. All the cobbling, it takes a while. So now it's at 20, 25, 26.
Yeah.
27. Okay.
Yeah, the question is are you remoting into the host, or have you the machine next to you? I don't think so. Huh? You're remoting to the lab, right?
I'm remoting to the lab, and on the lab server, I am remoting into the Hyper-V machine.
Yeah,
on the Hyper-V host itself.
Yeah, that would be a question if that has to do something with how much data it can deliver. But I would say we don't see really a difference between the RemoteFX heaven and this heaven. But
we could try and remote desktop into it if that makes a difference or not.
Yeah.
Also, this is not a gaming card, so It's a Grid K1. Some people like to compare the frames per second from an NVIDIA Grid card with, let's say, one of the really expensive high-end gaming cards, and those tend to do a lot better. But of course, they are really focused on producing nice images, and not perhaps working with AutoCAD or other types of data. So there's a difference in the types of cards there. But anyway, this is just to show the biggest important things. Perhaps can I change this on the fly? Let me make this a little bit smaller. No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to get rid of the window. Can I full screen? Okay, let's take this off. Will that do it for me? Can I change this on the fly? Yeah. Why I want to do this, because I want to look here. Okay. So now with a smaller screen, now I'm at 56 frames per second. Okay, and look at my temperature. We've risen 1 degree. We're consuming some extra memory as well, more than we did with
another degree.
It's dropping.
It's working.
Okay, but as you see, you change the resolution, you change the settings, but you can see
now 67. So it would be nice to know how RemoteFX is doing with that resolution.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't say DDA is not better than RemoteFX, but I'm quite impressed with RemoteFX.
It is doing well. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and we are remoting to the system, so. It depends on how good your bandwidth is, maybe, and it has to transport a lot of frames to your machine. Yeah?
But this is just cool. I mean, this is nice.
Yeah,
and it's not a scientific test, and it's not really a comparison. It's not a test battery.
Cool
it's just to show people what we can do.
Yeah.
And of course, because I'm an NVMe addict, I want to assign an NVMe disk to this VM as well.
Okay, do that.
Why not? Right? Let's do that. So let's stop this one. Bye bye. So let's shut it down. And let's go and have a look at my NVMe disk. Let's create a little folder. I'll call it Carsten.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
And I will say a new text file, and I will call it Hyper-V Amigos.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
So you are my witness. We have just created this folder and put in a little text file.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to play exactly the same game actually as we did with the GPU, but we're going to assign an NVMe. Now, there is one thing you need to take into consideration. Some people, I mean me, but my very first attempt to do this, you assign the controller to the VM, not the disk. So that was my first attempt. This is not going to work. You need to do the controller, right? It's a controller. That makes sense because, you know, remember that little script we talked about that lists all the devices that can be assigned? It mentions the controllers, the RAID controller, the HBA controller, etc., etc. as well. For the NVMe disk, it's about the controller as well. So basically this one. And as you can see on the host, I have installed the Intel drivers. Right? It knows it's a driver for this.
Yeah, that's a solid.
Yeah. So let's go. And we will list storage controllers of the type
SCSI adapters.
Yes, and it's an IE NVMe type.
Okay.
So basically, I only have the Intel one in there, but if I want to be more precise, again, I can enhance my query with a friendly name if I know what it is. So basically, this will find the same one. So if let's say you might be a German engineering office and you have dozens of NVMe cards in there, you can even select the correct one. So again, what we'll do is we will disable it, and as we disable it, That's the first step, if you remember.
And you won't see it in the device manager anymore? Or it will be, offline, yeah.
It's disabled, right?
Yeah.
So if you now look at it, it's not there. What we will do now is get the location path again for this. So as you remember, the data is a multi-string value. So we're gonna grab the data path or the location path out of there. So let's do that, which is basically the same thing as we did with the GPU. We will then dismount it from the host, and then you will see it disappear. So now, goodbye, that nice expensive NVMe disk. So if you want to hide your NVMe disk from your colleagues, this is how you can hide it.
Yeah,
use the script. Just turn it back on if you go into the office. Again, if you look now at get host VM assignable device, we should find our card. How do we know what card it is? Well, the location path matches, right?
Yeah, and the other is the GPU, right?
The other one is the GPU, right? Okay, now let's assign that NVMe to our VM. There we go. And if we now ask what the VM has, you will find that it has two things, a GPU and a virtual PCI.
Yeah, a question, Didier. You powered down the virtual machine, so we now see the GPU that is assignable again. Would it be gone if we start the virtual machine?
No.
You have to be a little bit
you have to be a little bit careful and document things.
Yeah.
If you start let's say, disabling all four of them, it kind of pays to keep track of who has assigned what. It's queryable, of course. The moment you query for that VM, you see, I'm querying now this VM.
Yeah.
And it tells me this is what you got on this VM, right?
Yeah. Two devices.
I've got this device, and this device. And it pays if you just keep track of what you do.
Yeah.
You can query it and figure it out, but it's not hiding it for you because you have assigned it already. So maybe they'll do that in the future. Maybe they'll enhance the management around it.
Yeah.
But for now, this is what it is.
Okay, then let's see our NVMe in action.
It's a good question. Question. So we'll start this one again. So I also have the Intel drivers here, just in case I haven't got them on them anymore. Let's go to computer management, disk management. Hey, it's over here, NVMe. The name is still there, even.
Yeah.
And let's look at device manager. And I will find a disk, my Intel disk, and I will find my
controller, storage controller.
Where is it? Here.
All the way down.
But it doesn't have the driver from Intel yet.
But there's a standard driver in the Windows.
There's a standard driver, but the advice is always use the vendor's driver. So why not? That's the one I'm using in the host. So that's also something you want to do. You want to use the same drivers on the host as you do on the virtual machines.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It will not blow up in your face, but it kind of pays to stay consistent. But the good news is, normally, to prove that this is indeed not some other NVMe card, hey, the folder Carsten is there.
Yeah, so maybe that's
our Amigos file isn't. Hey, great, that's it. So now we have a VM with a GPU and an NVMe.
Did you do some performance testing and
yes,
on the host and in the VM?
Was super enthusiastic about all the power I have in my VM.
Yeah.
And then I compare this to what I could do with. I think I used the storage spaces on a standalone Hyper-V host with about 6 or 8 SSDs in there. And then really, unless you really need the last inch of performance, and you have really multiple queues and multiple I/O sessions going on, it might not be worth it. It really depends on your needs, because it is impressive. You get the hardware speed. It's crazy.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So now you have to all the driver stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just running along. That will be finished soon. And then you will see that it shows up with the nice name and it knows which type of NVMe disk it is. Then you have the driver installed. Okay, that's it. Yes, of course. So let's refresh this. It's not even a server one. Basically, that's because it was on my budget, not of somebody else's.
Although 750 is a nice one.
It's a very nice one. For the money, it's really a very nice one.
Yeah. So I think there are some on sales, right? I heard the 400 gigabyte NVMe is 300 euros, maybe.
Yeah, sure, could be.
I think. But you, of course, had the 1.2 terabyte one, huh?
Well, I kind of want. My excuse for this is that, of course, it's for my nested VMs.
Yeah, of course. So you need 1.2 terabytes for that.
And out of the goodness of my heart, I've used it.
That's a great idea. You can assign it to a VM that is a Hyper-V host. It's nested. That's a great idea. Actually, yeah, cool. I didn't thought of that. I have some NVMe's in my notebook, as you know.
But I'm not gonna nest. I don't know how deep you want to nest.
No, it's only nest because your VM is a hypervisor. This is nested virtualization, right? And then you assign your NVMe to this hypervisor.
Yep. So
okay, cool, very cool. We are on the 1 hour mark, so I think our last session was not so long, but before that we had a 1 hour and 40-minute session about storage spaces direct. So 1 hour is great, great demonstration, and to wrap it up, we can assign PCI devices, right?
Yeah.
Or we can't assign other stuff. It's a PCI thingy, or is it not? Because the NVMe was a PCI device, the grid card.
As far as I know, it certainly looks that way. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The network cards, the HBA cards, everything you can find.
It's PCI Express. Yeah. Cool.
The RAID controller is a bit of a funky example that you can find if you list all the devices that are eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the most funky one, actually.
Yeah, but I think that is great, and even RemoteFX is. There are some great enhancements in it. So I think Microsoft did a good job here with 2016 with using the stuff in servers. And if you need
the good thing is they really needed to step up their game, because if they didn't improve what they had as an offering in this edition, they would really leave the market to the competition.
Yeah.
We're lagging a bit in that, and on that front, let's put it that way. Okay. And they've made a nice effort to step up their game, and I think they're not done yet.
Yeah. So we'll see. Okay, Didier, nice showcast. I think this is the last one for this year. I will bring it this year, short before Sylvester, I assume. Is Sylvester correct?
Sylvester, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it will be our Sylvester present, maybe.
Yeah. So if you need some help with figuring out the scripts, if you go on my blog and look for DDA, you will find all of them. So.
Yeah, you did some nice things there.
So that's about it.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Didier, thank you very much for the screencast. I wish you and our listeners, I think Christmas is already over when you watch this, but Happy New Year.
Are you going to publish it on Christmas as a Christmas present?
Maybe. And how you call it in Germany? We say "Guten Rutsch ins neue Jahr."
So good luck or something, or
is it good luck? Guten Rutsch is like slide into the a happy slide into the new year.
A smooth progression to the new year.
Yeah, and I think we will do some cool. We have cool things to show in Windows Server 2016.
I just noticed I didn't put up on any Christmas decoration or anything. Oh, God.
That's okay. You have
That's
your
okay.
US flag in the background. So,
it's a fleece, actually. It's a blanket.
Okay. Didier, see you soon, and have a nice Christmas, and have a smooth, how you say it?
Transition
Into 2017.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye-bye, my friend.